Dawn broke over Gir Forest with a silence so deep it felt sacred. The morning mist curled between the acacia trees, carrying the faint echo of roaring big cats. But that day, one sound rose above the rest, a soft, helpless cry. When the rangers reached the source, what they saw froze them in disbelief. A lioness, the ruler of this wild kingdom, was nursing a leopard cub. Two natural rivals, predator and prey, bound not by blood, but by something far more powerful. In that instant, the world seemed to hold its breath. The lioness lowered her head gently, guiding the leopard cub closer, her massive paws dwarfing his fragile body. No one had ever witnessed such a moment in the history of Gir Forest. Scientists would later call it a rare case of interspecies adoption, but in that golden light it was more than a study, it was a miracle. A reminder that even in the heart of the wild, compassion can roar louder than instinct. For days, cameras captured the unthinkable, a bond that defied every law of nature. She hunted for him, groomed him, protected him from the very pride that should have rejected him. And yet, no one knew how long this fragile peace could last. The forest watched, silent, as if it too feared breaking the spell. Was this mercy or madness? Scientists couldn't explain it. The world couldn't look away. What force could make a lioness love a leopard, an enemy, as her own? Stay with us until the end, because what happened next in Gir Forest would challenge everything we believe about nature, survival, and the mysterious language of love written in the eyes of wild creatures. In the heart of Western India lies Gir Forest, a vast and ancient land where every shadow hides a predator, and every sound could mean survival or death. Here, big cats rule, lions and leopards, eternal rivals locked in a delicate balance. Lions dominate the open plains, while leopards haunt the cliffs and thickets. They share territory, but never peace. Until one day, that unwritten rule was broken, not by violence, but by love. It began with a mystery. Rangers noticed something strange, a lioness often straying from her pride, carrying food not for her cubs, but for another hidden life deep in the underbrush. When they finally found her den, what they saw would rewrite everything science believed about predator behavior. Nestled between lion cubs was a leopard cub, spotted, trembling, and alive. At first, researchers refused to believe it. A lioness nursing a leopard? Impossible. It went against every instinct of nature, territory, dominance, species rivalry, and yet the evidence stood before their eyes. Day after day, she returned to the cub, guarding him, feeding him, and even letting him play beside her own young. It wasn't coincidence, it was care. Experts from the Gujarat Forest Department began documenting the phenomenon. Some called it maternal overflow, others a psychological anomaly. But those who watched closely saw something deeper. A choice. A mother choosing love over lineage, compassion over competition. This story would soon reach the world, published in a peer-reviewed study in 2020. But before it became science, it was something purer, a heartbeat in the wild. A testament that sometimes even the fiercest creatures remind us what it means to be human. Before the miracle of compassion came the silence of loss. Somewhere on the rocky edge of Gir Forest, a leopard mother moved through the tall grass, her spotted coat melting into the landscape. She had hunted all night, her cubs waiting in a hollow under the roots of an old acacia. But when the morning came, only one tiny cry answered her call, and then, nothing. The jungle that once echoed with her steps now held only the whisper of absence. No one knows exactly what happened that night. Perhaps another predator, perhaps hunger, perhaps fate. What is known is that one leopard cub, barely 3 weeks old, was left behind, alone, trembling, calling for a mother who would never return. The forest is not kind to the weak, and yet in that ocean of danger something extraordinary was waiting to be written. For days the cub wandered aimlessly, its small paws sinking into dust and leaves, voice hoarse from crying. Each sound he made was both a plea and a risk, inviting either rescue or death. His scent lingered in the wind, drifting through the boundaries of rival territories, and that's where destiny intervened. The scent reached the nostrils of a lioness resting in the shade, her own cubs asleep by her side. Her head rose slowly. Instinct told her this cry was not one of her own kind, yet something deeper, older than instinct, stirred within her. She listened again. The sound came weak, desperate, fading with each breath. She hesitated. A lioness knows no mercy for intruders, but this sound, it was not a threat, it was a plea. The moment she stood, everything changed. She crossed the invisible line separating predator from rival. Her massive paws moved silently over the earth, following the cry until she found him, small, spotted, half-starved, eyes wide with terror. For a long moment, neither moved. The lioness stared down at the creature before her, a reflection of fragility in a world built on strength. Then, in a gesture that would defy biology itself, she bent down and nudged the cub gently with her nose. A single breath of recognition passed between them. The cub didn't run. He trembled, waiting. And then, she did the unthinkable. She lifted him softly in her jaws, carrying him back through the thorny brush toward her den. When she returned, her cub stirred, sniffing curiously at the stranger. The air grew tense, but the lioness lay down calmly, curling her body around them all, her own cubs and the leopard cub together. She began to groom him, slow and rhythmic, erasing the scent of his lost mother, marking him with her own. The cub latched onto her, hungry and trembling. Milk flowed, and with it life. The researchers who later saw the footage would describe it as a moment beyond explanation. But for that small creature, it was simply warmth, heartbeat, survival, a mother's mercy disguised as instinct. Night fell and the forest watched. The pride slept under silver moonlight, unaware that one of its youngest was not truly theirs. The lioness, awake and alert, kept her eyes fixed on the horizon, not as a hunter, but as a guardian. The spotted cub nestled against her chest, breathing slow, safe at last. And somewhere in that quiet space between the wild and the divine, something ancient was rewritten. A predator had chosen compassion over conquest. The leopard cub left behind had found a home, not where he belonged, but where he was loved. The sun rose over Gir Forest, washing the land in gold. But inside the den, unease rippled like a hidden current. The lioness lay still, her eyes half open, guarding the small spotted cub pressed against her chest. Her own cubs slept beside him, unaware of the stranger among them. Yet outside, the scent of the leopard had already carried through the grass, a scent that did not belong. The first lion to notice was a young male, lean and restless, circling near the den. His nostrils flared, his instincts stirred. To him the smell was wrong, foreign, invasive. He crouched low, tail twitching. But before he could advance, the lioness rose with a low, thunderous growl that rolled through the clearing. One warning was enough. He stopped. Her glare cut through him like fire. It was a sight that puzzled even the rangers watching from afar. The lioness, usually calm and obedient to the pride's hierarchy, now stood apart, defiant. She wasn't protecting food or territory. She was protecting someone. And in the wild, that someone, being from another species, broke every rule nature had written. For days, tension hung heavy around the pride. The males approached but kept their distance. The lionesses whispered with low roars and cautious glances. Every time one came too close, the mother stepped forward, body between the cub and the world. The others could smell it now. This was not one of them. Still, she refused to yield. The leopard cub, unaware of the danger, followed her. Everywhere, stumbling, playful, mimicking her cubs as if he belonged. He learned to walk between the giants, hiding under her belly when other lions passed. His spots gleamed under the sun like drops of shadow. In a kingdom where blood defined family, he had become a living question. The rangers recorded everything. Cameras hidden in the trees caught moments of quiet tenderness. The lioness licking the cub clean, nudging him towards safety when a male lion approached, even sharing a piece of her. Kill with him. Each clip stunned the scientific community, proof of a mother's instinct extending beyond species. One afternoon, a confrontation erupted. A dominant male approached, snarling at the den. The leopard cub froze, the air thickened with fear. But before he could take another step, The lioness leapt forward, roaring with such force that even the forest seemed to flinch. The male backed away, confused, not by her strength, but by her reason. No lioness had ever fought to defend another predator. After that day, the pride changed. The males avoided her den. The lionesses no longer challenged her. The cubs, curious and fearless, began to play together, paws swatting, tails twisting, laughter echoing through the grass. The leopard cub was slower, smaller, but brave. Sometimes he'd climb a low branch while the others watched from below, as if teaching them a trick from his own kind. Days turned into weeks, and what had begun as a fluke became a pattern, a fragile piece, guarded by love. The pride learned to accept what they couldn't understand. The rangers called it the Gir miracle, but the lioness didn't need names. She had chosen her truth, and no one dared take it from her. At dusk, when the last light slipped through the trees, the lioness lay surrounded by her cubs, golden and spotted alike. Her breath was steady, her gaze unyielding. The jungle, once filled with rivalry and roar, had fallen silent, and for the first time, the leopard cub slept not as an outsider, but as part of a pride that had learned through her that family is not born of blood, but of love. As word spread through the conservation network, Gir Forest became the stage of global fascination. What began as a ranger's report turned into a scientific pilgrimage. Cameras, drones, and researchers from across India arrived to witness the living contradiction, a lioness nursing a leopard cub. For them, this was not folklore or myth. It was data, but the longer they watched, the less it felt like science, and more like a miracle. The Gujarat Forest Department set up observation points near the pride's territory, careful to stay hidden. Each day they noted the lioness's behavior, her feeding patterns, her interactions with her cubs, and her protective stance toward the leopard cub. The evidence mounted quickly. It wasn't temporary care. It wasn't confusion. It was motherhood, consistent, intentional, and astonishing. Field biologist Dr. Nisarg Patel wrote in his notes, "She treats the leopard cub as her own. There's no aggression, only care. This is not instinct as we know it. It's empathy." His words would later appear in the 2020 study that shocked the world. For the first time in recorded history, a top predator was observed extending maternal behavior to another species of big cat, a natural rival. But science demands reason, and reason demands doubt. Could it be hormonal? Was it the scent of her cubs mixed with his? Some experts argued that the lioness had lost one of her own, and her grief transferred into care. Others said it was a fluke of nature. One in a million confusion of instincts. Yet the more they analyzed, the more the data contradicted logic. The leopard cub grew stronger each day, his spots shining brighter under the Indian sun. His playfulness mirrored that of his adopted siblings. When he stumbled, she lifted him gently by the scruff, just as she did her own cubs. When danger came, she shielded him first. Cameras captured these gestures again and again. Evidence that emotion could exist even where language did not. Among the observers, something unexpected began to happen. Scientists trained to remain objective found themselves moved. Some described tears behind their lenses. Others admitted they forgot for a moment that they were documenting predators. In their journals, notes turned poetic. A lioness defends love, not lineage. It was as if the forest itself had invited them to witness a secret meant for the heart, not the mind. Even local villagers, long familiar with the rhythms of the wild, saw the story as sacred. To them it was not science, and it was divine grace. The forest chose her, they said. She became a mother to all. Word spread through the nearby villages, carried by whispers and radio broadcasts, until the lioness became a legend of Gir, a symbol of harmony where conflict once ruled. By the third week, the phenomenon reached international news. Headlines read, "Lioness adopts leopard cub in India. Scientists baffled." Documentaries began forming, each trying to decode the mystery. But no frame, no photograph could capture the quiet truth that the bond between them was not about species, but about survival through compassion. Researchers noted her unusual calmness during human proximity. Normally, A lioness with cubs would attack. Yet she tolerated the observers as if she knew she was teaching them something. Her milk production remained steady, her heartbeat slow. She wasn't stressed, she was serene. It was as if she understood the importance of what she had done. In the end, the study concluded what the cameras could not, that biology alone could not explain this event. It was a phenomenon beyond classification, an emotional anomaly wrapped in fur and fangs. But for those who stood in the tall grass that summer, watching the lioness and her adopted child under the burning sky, one truth was undeniable. Science had witnessed love, and love had rewritten science. The days that followed were gentle, almost sacred. The lioness and her adopted leopard cub moved through the forest like a heartbeat, steady, rhythmic, alive. Rangers often found them resting in the shade, the cub climbing over her paws, her tail flicking playfully across his back. It was easy to believe this miracle would last forever. But in Gir Forest, forever is never promised. As the dry season deepened, the grass turned brittle and yellow. Prey grew scarce, and the pride began to wander, farther each day. The lioness, divided between her family and her fragile adoptee, hunted with a quiet desperation. Her golden coat thinned under the heat, yet her resolve never faltered. She brought meat to her cubs, and somehow always found a small portion for the leopard cub, a gesture that did not go unnoticed by the others. The males grew restless. Hunger sharpened their instincts, and with it, their cruelty. To them, the spotted cub was not kin. He was competition. One evening, as the pride fed on a fallen antelope, a low growl broke the peace. The leopard cub had come too close to the meal. A young male lunged. Dust and fury filled the air, but before a single tooth could touch him, the lioness charged. Her roar split the savanna, fierce, primal, echoing through the valley. She struck the male across the muzzle, driving him backward, her eyes blazing with fury. The others froze. For a long moment, no one moved. Even the wind seemed to bow before her defiance. The lioness had once again broken nature's law. She had chosen love over loyalty, but even love cannot silence hunger. As the weeks passed, the drought worsened. Waterholes dried to mud, and the forest grew eerily still. The leopard cub, smaller and less adapted to the lion's lifestyle, began to weaken. His spots lost their shine, his steps grew slow. He struggled to keep up with the pride's constant movement. She noticed, and she stayed behind for him. Researchers watching from a distance could feel the story shifting. What had once been a miracle was now a test of endurance. The lioness stopped joining the hunts, focusing instead on guarding him. Her ribs showed beneath her skin, yet she still groomed him, still shielded him from the sun. It was no longer just survival. It was sacrifice. One night, under the pale light of a waning moon, the leopard cub stopped moving. His breathing came shallow and slow. The forest, always filled with noise, fell silent. The lioness nudged him gently, urging him to stand, to live, to fight. But he didn't. Her low rumble turned into a moan, a sound too human for the wilderness. She lay beside him for hours, her massive body curved protectively around his tiny frame. When dawn arrived, her cubs approached, curious. She let them come closer, but none dared touch him. The air was heavy with something the forest rarely knew: grief. Later that day, she carried him one last time, not in her jaws as prey, but against her heart, as if she could return him to the warmth that once gave him life. She placed him beneath a tree, the same tree where they had first rested weeks before. Then she sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon, unblinking, eternal. When the rangers found her there, the lioness did not move. The body of the leopard cub lay still beside her, the forest quiet out of respect. One of the observers whispered, "Even miracles are fragile." But perhaps that's what made this one unforgettable. Because in a world ruled by survival, for one fleeting moment love had dared to exist, and that was enough. When the story reached the world, it did not arrive as mere news. It arrived as a revelation. Headlines, documentaries, and interviews repeated the same unbelievable truth. A lioness in Gir Forest had adopted, nursed, and protected a leopard cub. But what truly captivated people wasn't the biology. It was the humanity within the act, a gesture so pure that even science had to bow to it. Experts from around the globe debated theories. Some said the lioness had experienced a hormonal extension of maternal instinct. Others argued it was grief for a lost cub projected onto another. But deep down, most knew it was something else, something beyond charts and data. It was empathy, raw and uncalculated, blooming where no one expected it. In schools, teachers shared the story with children to explain kindness. In documentaries, narrators whispered about the heart of Gir. Across continents, viewers cried watching a predator cradle its natural rival. The image of that lioness, eyes, half closed, body curved around the fragile leopard cub, became a symbol of what the world had forgotten, that compassion isn't weakness, it's strength in its purest form. Scientists who once stood behind lenses now spoke with emotion. "We studied her," one said, "but she taught us." Another added, "We spend our lives explaining nature, yet nature just explained us." Those who had watched her story unfold began to realize that love isn't a concept humans invented, it's an ancient language this wild has spoken all along. The footage from Gir Forest was presented at global conservation forums. It inspired new discussions about empathy and animal behavior, changing the way researchers understood maternal instincts. The 2020 paper became a reference, not just for zoology, but for philosophy, cited in studies about coexistence, ethics, and emotional intelligence in wildlife. Yet, far from the screens and papers, in the stillness of Gir Forest, her story continued to echo. Villagers spoke of her with reverence. "She showed us that the forest has a heart," said one. Another called her Ma Nirmala, the gentle mother. For them, she was no longer a lioness. She was a spirit, a reminder that even in the fiercest beings, mercy lives quietly. The leopard cub's short life wasn't a tragedy. It was a message. Through his presence, the wild revealed a truth we struggle to see, that differences of color, species, or kind are illusions in the face of love. He came into her world as an outsider and left it having redefined what family could mean. In time, the lioness rejoined her pride, but those who continued to observe her noted subtle changes. She was gentler, slower to aggression, often gazing into the horizon for long moments, as if listening to echoes the rest of the world could not hear. The miracle had changed her, and through her, us. The scientists closed their journals, but humanity kept the story alive. Artists painted it, writers retold it, children dreamed about it. Because somewhere deep inside, everyone recognized that moment, when love broke the pattern, when instinct gave way to grace, when the world remembered its soul. And so, long after the grass regrew and the rains returned to Gir Forest, her legacy remained. The lioness had not only rewritten the laws of the wild, she had reminded the world that the greatest strength lies not in dominance, but in tenderness. What she taught the world was simple and eternal. That love, in any form, is the truest roar of all. When the sun sets over Gir Forest, the air still carries her story. The trees remember her footsteps, the wind still whispers her name. Somewhere between the rustling leaves and the fading calls of the wild, the echo of her roar lingers, not a sound of power, but of peace. The lioness who once chose love over instinct reminds us that even in a world ruled by survival, kindness can be the most courageous act of all. We live in a world that often rewards strength, but forgets compassion. Yet, this story, the story of a lioness and a leopard cub, shows us that love is not limited by logic, language, or blood. It transcends fear. It bridges worlds. And maybe, just maybe, the wild isn't as far from us as we think, because deep down, we all carry both the hunter and the heart that chooses mercy. So as you go through your day, remember her, the lioness of Gir Forest, whose heart was larger than her roar. Let her remind you that compassion isn't weakness, it's what makes us truly alive. Be kind today, even when the world tells you not to. Because somewhere out there in the quiet heart of the wild, love still echoes, fierce, fearless, and eternal.